Good day, everyone. The topic that I'm discussing today is urban sustainability indicators for Caribbean small island developing states. Professor Michelle Michael is supervising my PhD research in this study area. So during the presentation today, I am going to introduce the topic a bit further. This will be followed by a discussion on urban sustainability indicators and frameworks, and then I will conclude with some of the components of an urban sustainability framework um, that are specific to Caribbean SIDS. So in introducing the topic a bit further, I would discuss the relevance of the topic within a global context and then with respect to Caribbean SIDS. So within the last few decades, between the 1960s and the 1970s to now, we have witnessed a paradigm shift in discussions on development from a focus on economic development to sustainability in development. Further to that, and within the last 3 decades or so, with a significant increase in the number of persons who reside in urban areas globally, there is now a strong emphasis not only on sustainability in development, but also sustainability in urban development. This is relevant to SIDS globally, as well as the Caribbean SIDS, where percentages of urbanization are relatively high. Michael and Donovan 2017 have identified the three most urbanized countries of the Caribbean region as the Bahamas. They are 79% urbanized. Trinidad and Tobago, they are 72% urbanized. And Suriname, where they are 76% urbanized. Now, due to these high levels of urbanization within Caribbean SIDS, there are a number of concerns which arise that are relevant to development and urban planning. Some of these include the demand for housing in urban areas, and increased demand for housing, and the implications for the natural environment, the prevalence of primate cities and coastal or port cities, and the additional impacts of climate change together with all of this. So, for example, fresh in many of our minds would still be the losses and the damage incurred as a result of Hurricanes Irma and Maria in 2017, and as well the devastating floods which were experienced in various parts of Trinidad in 2018 as the result of an extreme rainfall event. So, in light of all of this, the question now is, how is this research relevant to all of this? How is development planning and this research relevant in mitigating these outcomes? And where do indicators, where does the work on indicators come in all of this? So I will discuss this within the context of my research objectives, which are as follows. The first objective is to develop relevant indicators to assess urban sustainability in SIDS. The second objective is to use indicators to determine critical urban development issues. And the third objective is to use indicators in prioritizing policy measures to achieve sustainable cities in SIDS. So further to this, if we look in the literature, Rosales 2011 notes that over the last few decades, a number of methods, techniques, and instruments for urban sustainable assessment that seek to figure out how cities can become more sustainable have emerged. Among these methods and techniques include the use of indicators. UN Habitat notes that ideally, policies should be developed in unison with supportive indicators. This is an increasing common practice globally. So there are a number of indicators that have been developed globally by a number of international organizations. These include the United Nations, the World Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank, the Asian Development Bank, etc. What is interesting to note is that Gomez, Alvarez, et al. 2018 in their work, they have highlighted the fact that indicators can be classed as belonging to either first, second, or third generation, and that we should actually be moving towards a fourth generation of indicators. So first generation indicators are those that focus, they have a focus on economic metrics and a macroeconomic approach. Second generation indicators are more thematic and sectoral in nature. They are guided by the Millennium Development Goals. And the third generation indicators, they use multidimensional monitoring frameworks and are guided by the UN 2030 Development Agenda and the UN SDGs. So Gomez, Alvarez et al. In their work, they have noted that in moving from the first to the third generation of indicators, indicators have become more holistic in nature. But despite this, our understanding of cities is still limited in 4 ways. One, there's a partial global geographic coverage of specific regions. Two, there's a focus on measurement at the national level. Three, there's a small depiction of a particular aspect of urban dynamics. And four, there's a lack of a territorial geolocalized approach. So these researchers have suggested that we really need to be moving towards a fourth generation of urban indicators, which will provide a broader, more people-centered approach alongside existing monitoring frameworks. So this is the approach that I would like to adopt in my research in terms of suggesting and working towards a sustainability framework that is specific to SIDS. I will be incorporating some of this. So two of the existing frameworks that I would like to build on include the World Bank USF and the Inter-American Development Bank Emerging and Sustainable Cities Framework. The World Bank USF, because it is a relatively new framework, and the IDB ESCI, because it's specific to the Latin America and Caribbean region. What I hope to do, however, is to really build on what the IDB ESCI has already done and make it even more Caribbean specific, in the sense that there are going to be, the Caribbean has its own, the Caribbean can be identified as a unique geographical space. And there are things that will be unique to the Caribbean that would not necessarily be captured when we look at Latin America and the Caribbean as a whole. So, for example, when you separate the Caribbean out of that grouping, some of our unique features would include the fact that we are located within the hurricane belt. The size of our territories would be much smaller as compared to those of Latin America. Our population sizes will be much smaller, etc. So in terms of the logistics for things like mass transit, etc., we will be looking at a totally different set of logistics for the Caribbean as opposed to the Latin America region. So I would really like to focus on the Caribbean as a unique geographical space. In addition to that, I would also like to focus on a localized approach to development at the city level and a people-centered approach. So there is a survey that I am using to collect primary data for this particular research that will help me with this in moving towards a Caribbean-specific USF. So I would like to end my presentation here today, and I thank you very much for listening.